Hi everybody. I'm preparing to do this video, which will be the demonstration of the deliverables for our Emerging Trends in Technology class. So let me just prepare here for 1 minute. I need to get the slides. Of course, the slides would be in D2L, and the slides are entitled Completing the Deliverables. Hopefully you've downloaded those and you're able to leverage those. So what we're going to do in this class, or excuse me, in this video, is to go over all of the deliverables for the Emerging Trends in Translation Technology class. So I will make this deck a little bit bigger. Hopefully that's seeable by everybody. So the way that works is that we have 4 projects. The first 3 are worth 10 points each, and then the final is worth 20 points. The first one, X1, create an ExLift file from an XML file, is worth 10 points. 5 of those are by converting the the XML to ExLift, and then the other 5 is for having a valid ExLift file. If you do that, you get 10 points. T1, TBX Project, you get 2.5 points for completing your spreadsheet completely and correctly. For your TMX and for TBX, 2.5 points for each, and then 2.5 points for each for converting them to valid, complete, and correct XML. And then the X2 deliverable is translating the ExLift file, including leveraging translation memory and leveraging the terms. So you get 2.5 points for leveraging the TBX file that you created. Same thing for the TMX file that you created, and using the translation candidates module, and then 5 points if each segment is translated. This video does not go into T2, which is the final deliverable, so we'll just skip that. So for X1, what you need to do for the first step is to create a Microsoft Word file meeting the specifications that I laid out for you. You've all completed that, so that's good. The next thing you have to do then is, those are the requirements, and everybody's done that. The next thing you need to do is to convert the Word file to XML. By the way you do that is to email it to me, and then I email back to you the converted file. So let's get into just how we do that. So I have my ET directory, and I'm going to grab my XML file. So I'm going to, in my ET directory, I'm going to create a new directory called myXML. myXML, okay. And in that directory or folder, I will put my XML file, and you all have an XML file like this. So then I will view it in my text editor. Okay. So there I have my XML file that was generated from my Word file. Okay. So then I'm going to activate XMarker. Okay. And it's firing up here. I have 2 screens, so it's actually opening on my other screen, and when it opens I will drag it into the view here so that it is included in the video. Okay. So hopefully you've installed XMarker on your desktop and it's functioning correctly. So the first step, I'm going to go back to my slides. It says to set the XML file. So I will do that by hitting the Set XML File window. and I will browse to my ET directory. This takes me to my desktop. This takes me to my ET directory, and this takes me to my XML. I'm going to switch it to all files, and I'm going to open my XML. And if I look on my so that creates a window that asks me, do I want to set this as my XML input file? I'll say yes. So if I look at my XML file tab, I see that I have my XML file set there. Okay. So then I'm going to click my XML to ExLift button, and it's going to create, these screens are jumping off to the next screen, so I'm just going to move them over, and hopefully that won't be too disruptive. That has converted the XML file into an ExLift file, so I will move that to source. Okay, now if I look at my ExLift screen, I see that this is now an ExLift file. Okay, so now the next step is to validate that it is valid per the schema. So I will click my schema validation, and it says that the XML file is valid. Okay, so that's good. So then what I will do is save the source ExLift file, and I will call it myexlift.xlf. Okay, so I'll save, and I will go to my desktop, ET, my XML, in my XML, and I will call it my XLIFF.xlf, and I will save, and I will exit from this program. Be sure to exit from the program because we're going to want to open that XML, make sure we have the right XLift file. So then the next step is that I email this to the professor, and it says that I have completed X1. So by doing so, if I look into my ET directory now, I see that I have this my ExLift file, and I'm going to email that to the professor. Okay. So then I've completed X1. So now I'm going to go into T1. T1 is to create a TBX file and a TMX file. So first of all, I'm going to create the TBX file. So I've downloaded and installed the TBX Utility, and I have that in my ET directory. I got that from D2L. So if I go to my TBX directory, I see that I have this. So I'm going to remove this old stuff. And what do I have in here? Okay, so that comes with a spreadsheet. I'm going to remove this XML file too. Okay. Okay, so the spreadsheet has things in it already. I think this was left over from the exercise I did before. So I'm just going to minimize that, and I'm going to go back to my instructions. So it says to download and unzip and install. So I've done that. And it says to open my XML file and observe the term elements. These go into the TBX spreadsheet. So if I go back into my XML file, I see that I have some terms here. I have this term. Let's see here. Can I zoom this a little bit? Okay, make that a little bit bigger so you can see it. And I have this term, and I have this term, and I have this term. Okay. So I need to observe those. So I know that I have those terms, and I'm going to, these will go into my spreadsheet. So I open this TBX spreadsheet, which I have here, and I'm going to delete all but rows 1 and 2. So I'll leave rows 1 and 2, and I'll delete the rest. And it says that the first row is okay. I can just use that as a reference. Okay. So now I'm going to, in column A, add all of the terms from my XML file. So I will carefully go to my XML file, and I will grab each term, and I will paste each term into my spreadsheet. I know that all my terms are in my first paragraph, so I'll grab this one, I'll paste it here. And I'll grab this one. And I'll paste it here. And I'll grab this one. And I'll paste it here. And I'll grab this one. And I'll paste it here. Okay. So then the next step is to paste, to add all of the target terms, if applicable, translations. As I've told you before, in my opinion, the purpose of TBX is not to provide translations, but rather to provide definitions. So, but it does have a placeholder for them. In my case, I'm just going to type not applicable to all of these, and just make sure that they all have not applicable. The next step is to enter the subject for each. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say that strings are guitar accessory. And I'm going to say that for strings and for picks and for the amplifier. But for tune, I'm going to say that that's a guitar activity. Okay. The next step then is to add definitions for each. So I'm going to say that strings are excuse me. Strings are the vibrating part of a guitar that produce sound. Excuse me. I have a little tickle. A pick is a device. I'm going to excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so I've entered definitions for each of those. From here, I need to save the spreadsheet, save as XML spreadsheet, and name it mytbx.xml. Okay, so I'll do a file, save as, and I'm going to pick XML spreadsheet, not XML data, but rather XML spreadsheet. Okay, so that's this one. In my case, it says 2003. It might say any different year, but as long as you pick my XML spreadsheet, you'll be okay. Okay, I'm going to save it. I'm going to say yes, that's okay. So it's saved as mytbx.xml. So now, if I look in my directory, I now have something called mytbx.xml. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to invoke my command line, which I'm on Windows, so I will invoke a command line. And now I'm going to, one thing that I'm going to do here, just because this might be a little bit confusing, but we have our utility, our TBX utility here. Okay, yeah, this will work just fine. Never mind. Okay, so just want to make sure all the files I need are in there. Okay, so if I change directories to desktop, change directories to ET, change directories to TBX Utility, oops, CD TBX Utility. Oh, what did I do wrong here? TBX Utility. Okay, there we are. So now I see that I have all the files that I need. Oh, one more. I want to change directories once more. Okay, now I'm there. So now it says that I have to type this Java -jar into my command line. So I'm going to do that. Rather than typing it out, I'm taking a shortcut here. Enter. Okay, so what this is doing is it's using XSLT to convert my XML into my TBX file. So then the next step, it says, is to open the file in text editor. Okay, so I have my TBX file, and if I open this in text editor, I tell it that the language is XML for syntax highlighting, and I see that I have all of my terms now in a TBX file. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, so now I have to do the same thing for TMX. Okay, so I need to download and install the TMX utility, which I've done. Okay, I got that off of D2L. Okay, so now I need to create a spreadsheet in Microsoft Excel and save it as my TMX. So make sure I don't have something already there. Okay, so I've done that. I think this is what I did last time in the exercise for the last slides that I did. So I'm just going to, so now I have a file called my TMX, and I'm going to then enter in the first row, first column, English EN is my source, and then I'm going to enter my target language in the second column. So this will be EN-US, and I'm going to be translating into German. Okay. So then in the column of your first the first column, paste at least 4 segments into your spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my XML file. Oops, not this one. My XML file. And I'm going to be careful to only copy what's inside the tags, only the term tags, and I'm going to let this wrap. Just so everybody can see it. Okay. And then I'm going to grab my second paragraph. I'll grab my heading too. No, I'll just grab my second paragraph. And I have to do at least 4 of these. Okay. And my third. And one more. Grab this one. Okay, so now I have all of my source strings, and now it says to copy or to put the translations for each in column B. So I will do that. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I happen to have those off screen here. Thought I did. Bear with me for one moment here, sorry. Okay. Some dead air here, so I better fill this pretty quickly. So I will come up with my plan B. Okay. And here we go, just grabbing my translations. Going through a lot of trouble here. Okay, so I guess what I will do instead is I will do pseudo translations. So I will say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to use real translations. So sorry, just bear with me here for a second. Okay. Okay, so I have my translation for the first segment and my translation for the second segment. And my translation for the third segment. And my translation for the fourth segment. Okay. And now I need to save that as a XML spreadsheet named mytmx.xml. So I'll say File, Save As. I'm going to save it as a Microsoft XML spreadsheet, and I'm going to call it mytmx.xml. Okay. Okay, then I need to invoke my command line and change directories. So I will do that. And I'm going to change directories into TMX-Utility. TMX dash. Okay. And I have to do that one more time. And here I am. Okay. So I need to then enter this command, java -jar saxon9.jar. So I'm going to just paste that in here. Enter. Okay, it came back with no complaints. So now I should have in my TMX utility tmx.tmx. If I open that in my text editor, and tell it that the language is XML, I see that I have my nice English and German translation memory. Okay, so I'm done with T1. I have to email both of those spreadsheets and both the TMX file and the TBX file to the instructor, and I will have completed T1. Okay, so finally let's get into X2. X2 is to translate an XML, an ExLift file, leverage TBX and leverage TMX, and then translate all the segments. It's important that we do it in that order. We want to leverage our TBX first, and then our TMX, and then we want to translate. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to seed our ExLift file with term annotations. This is a little bit tricky, so I want to go over basically what I'm doing is I'm looking for PC ID equals term and then any value, and then change those to MRK ID equals a unique ID followed by type equals term. Okay, so I'm going to open my ExLift file. Okay, so I have my ExLift file. I will open this in my text editor. Okay, it has funny spacing, but that's okay, not a problem at all. So I think one of the things I'm going to have to, every now and then you have to fix things. I'm going to fix that, put an apostrophe there. Okay, that should be good. And anywhere where I see this PC term, I'm going to replace that, the open tag, with this open tag, being careful not to get any extra spaces. And I'm checking to make sure that my quotes are the right kind of quotes. Very good. So the first one I see is this one. So I'm going to copy, and this is why it's important that we learned XML and the peril of not knowing how to handle XML. This would happen in an actual startup kind of a situation where you actually have to edit XML files with Notepad. So I'm going to paste that in there. And the one thing that I want to make sure is that all of my IDs are unique. So this is M1. So I'm going to change this end tag to MRK. So I'm changing the start tag and the end tag. The next one I see here is this PC. So I'm going to paste this in. And I'm going to change the ID to M2. And I'm going to change its end tag. Okay, and then the next one I see is this one. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to paste. And I'm going to change this to M3. And change its end tag to MRK. And finally, I have one more term, and I'm going to paste that in here, and I'm going to make this M4. And I'm going to change its close tag to MRK. So for me, that's all the terms I have. So I'm going to save my file. Okay. So I've done everything in steps 1 through 4. And now I'm going to again start up XMarker. Okay. And then I'm going to open my ExLift file. Okay, I'm going to go to desktop, ET, my XML, and I'm going to open my ExLift file. And I see that indeed my terms are terms. If I zoom in, I can see that a little bit better. Okay, so I do have terms. Okay, that's good. So the next thing I need to do then is set a terms file. So I go here and I say set terms, and I navigate to my TBX Utility directory, and I'm going to change the type to all files, and I'm going to find my TBX.tbx. Make sure you get the right file here. That's the TBX file whose extension is TBX. Okay, and it puts this in the window and it says this is the TBX file. Is this the one that you want to use? I'll say set as glossary. So now if I go to my terms tab, I see that I have a glossary and I still have an ExLift. So now the next step is to invoke the glossary module by pressing the glossary button. Okay, so I will do that. Glossary. And what it did is it found all of the matches and it put them into glossary namespace. So this is good, so I'll move this to source. So now I see in my source I have all of my glossary entries here, which is good. Okay. Okay, so now I need to leverage my TMX file. So this is the second part. So again, I need to click on my TM tab, click Set TM, browse to my TMX files, and switch file type to all files. So okay, I'll remember all that. So I'm going to go to my TM tab, set my TM. I'm going to go up one directory into my TMX utilities. I still have all files set. So now I'm going to carefully pick my TMX.tmx. Okay, and it's going to show me that this is the TMX file I chose, and it has all of my English and German terms. I'm going to set as TM. So now I see that I have my TM file, and I still have my ExLift file. Okay. So now I'm going to use XMarker, and I'm going to click on the Translation Candidates button to leverage the TMX file. So I hit my Translation Candidates button, and I see that it has, for every pair, here I'll zoom in, for every pair that it's found, it's given me a translation candidate that if I choose to, I can leverage this in my translation. So I'll move that to source. Okay. So now I have an ExLift file that has glossaries and matches, and it still has my source. Okay, this is a little bit confusing to read on screen. So I've leveraged both my TM and my TBX, and now the last step is that I need to translate this file. So I'll hit my translate button, and I will translate the first, oops, just bear with me for just a moment here. Okay, I will translate my first term. And I will translate my second one. It's interesting that this didn't give me a match, and that sometimes happens. I would need to troubleshoot why did this not leverage the translation candidates match, but I'm just going to go ahead and paste it in there. Okay, and I'm going to go through this for all of my segments. Okay, so this one did say that there was a match, and it asks me, do I want to view the match? Okay, so I will say yes, I'll view the match, and it gave me the match, and I'm going to zoom in here. So I like this. I think that's a good translation, so I will put the target to clipboard. Okay, and I get a message that says this string is now on the clipboard. Okay, and then it says, I want to paste the match? I'll say yes, and it pasted the German translation into the proper area in the target. Okay, I'll go to my next, and it's again, it says that it found a match here, so I'm going to view the match, and I'll zoom in, and thus I like the match. Okay, so I'm going to move it to the target. Okay, and then I'm going to paste the match, and now I have my German. Okay, next string. I'm just going to pseudo translate the remaining. To save time. I'm translating it into XEs, I guess. And maybe some Z-ish while I'm at it. Okay, typo here. Okay. And if you just translated it into X's just like I am, you would get full credit. The only thing that I would say is that this could go into your portfolio, so you might want to think about at least using Google Translate. Okay, so it tells me that my last unit is complete, so I'll say OK, and then I click my Done button, and I will say OK to let it overwrite, and now I have a nicely translated file that has leveraged translation memory, and it has leveraged glossary, and I've translated every string. Okay, so I'm done here. No need to save. So now, if I check out my ExLift file, I see that it has leveraged the glossary, it has been translated, it has leveraged the TMX. So I have satisfied all of the needs for this deliverable. So then I'm just going to email this to my professor, and I will be done. So that is those are the steps to complete the deliverables for the first 3 deliverables for our class. As always, please let me know if you have any questions, and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you, everybody.